What's up, my friends? Today's divination sessions are coming to you in the form of a soul blueprint reading. So, in other words, we are diving into an aspect of what your higher self intended for this individuation. So, the individual watching this right now, what your higher self intended for this incarnation. Now, it's just important to keep in mind that this is just diving into one theme or one major theme, one aspect of your incarnation. So this is not going to encapsulate everything, just the most important thing at this time that your higher self would like to remind you of and or just bring greater amount of awareness around. So that's one aspect we're addressing, and then we're also addressing how we can fine-tune, or how you can fine-tune and align more to this intention. So we have 5 groups to choose from today. You can pause the video if you're feeling guided to do so. And whenever you're ready, we're going to jump right into these divination sessions. What's up, group number 1? Here is your reading for what did your higher self intend for you within this incarnation. We have 2 aspects. We'll be diving into that first aspect, and then we'll also be addressing how you can fine-tune and find greater alignment within this intention that your higher self had. So for my pile number 1s, it's very clear to me that you guys are here more in favor of planet Earth and more in favor of helping humanity to kind of move along and to climb the ladder of density, so to speak. So in other words, you are here to help activate other individuals on this planet, or at least to help them remember their divine spark, which I guess essentially is pretty much the same thing, right? But this is my group that you guys have probably known or remembered from a very young age, that you were here for something big. These are my piles where I'm seeing an individual that just goes into the forest or just goes out under the stars on a dark summer night and is just gazing up and just feels this immensity, this profundity of purpose, right? Even if you guys didn't really know from that young age how that was supposed to translate, I'm hearing that it just makes more and more sense as you get older. So it's very clear to me, you guys, that this is a pile where a lot of your karma, a lot of your own insecurities, they're not actually yours. They don't actually belong to you. And what you have taken on is more so as a service, right, to the planet. So we have certain individuals, certain souls, and this is generally speaking, but our soul ages. So in other words, how many incarnations your soul has taken on various planets will kind of aid into this. Our ability to be more of service versus needing to learn our own lessons. So the souls that are drawn to this pile in particular, you guys are beings that have had a profound amount of life experience. Might not just be on this planet, could be on other planets as well, because I am seeing that she is standing on another planet looking at Earth, right? And I just saw 222 on the clock. So that might be, if you guys resonate from Earth not being your native planet and having native planets in other star systems, that could most definitely be your confirmation, but you guys don't need it, right? Generally, those people that are tuned into this group don't really need confirmation on their path. Right? So if anything, this is just a little pick-me-up and a little morale boost for you guys. Yeah, so the reason why I'm really feeling that you guys are here to mainly help shift the collective consciousness is because we do have this Venom card. So, just in conjunction with what I was just saying, older souls tend to take on more karma. That's one of the most acts of the utmost selfless service, is coming in somewhere, coming into a dimension, coming into a field and being like, none of this is really mine. I've kind of already graduated. I've done all of these lessons. I've sifted through all of these things. But on an energetic level, and for some of you guys that might even be a verbal level, you're helping to change people's paradigms, right? And that can be done in a myriad of ways. I'm not really getting specifics here because this is a general reading for those that are drawn to this. But ultimately, this is saying to not let yourself be swallowed up by the bullshit on the planet, right? And to be mindful of what you're focusing on, be mindful of what you're expecting, be mindful of what you're speaking, right? Because I'm seeing this as this planet here, right? It's like higher self is like, you came here to be a way shower, right? What does this say? It says it's happening, hold the vision. So regardless of how it might seem like things are in like so much turmoil on this planet, it's like, don't get swept up in it. Don't get swallowed up by what you're hearing from the media and what your family is saying. Like, don't let yourself, I just saw 4442, don't allow yourself to be convinced that maybe their reality and their paradigms have some sort of substance in your paradigm. It could be very true to them and where they're operating at, but your paradigm is a lot more expanded. So, people whose paradigms are not as expanded as you. So in other words, they haven't taken as many incarnations, or maybe they haven't integrated those lessons from other incarnations. They're not going to be able to see through your lens, right? And so it's like, that's where the inclusivity of your paradigm and of an old to, advanced soul is necessary to keep in mind. So you're inclusive of other people's realities. It doesn't mean that you have to buy into it. Don't get swallowed up by what the world is trying to convince you is happening. And also I'm hearing that it's important to remember too, of what you're speaking, of what comes up in casual conversation, what you're expecting, right? So everything that we voice is kind of us putting out our order to the universe. So if we have everyone thinking that the government's corrupt and that this world is, running to shambles, regardless of how true or not those things might be to someone's paradigm, it's important that you, as the powerful alchemist that you are helping to kind of change those narratives. So you're not, gaslighting someone's paradigm, but you're also helping other people see the more empowered perspective of what's going on, because you really did come here. You did not come here to fuck around with this Chariot card. This is like, to me, this is someone who is literally here to just plow through karma, right? To do a lot of karma. And so it was these three cards actually that showed me too that you guys are here. Like you guys come in with not a lot of your own stuff. Like your natural state is this. And so it's like you come in and you absorb a lot of this and you plow through it. And, in your incarnation, you can have a lot of happiness. You can experience a lot of worth. Like the karma that you came in to cleanse for other people, it's not like this has to be a lifelong thing or like a lifetime of punishment, which I feel is important for you guys to know. There might have been a lot of hardship that you experienced throughout your incarnation, and maybe it seems like it hasn't really let up. And, it's just important to remember when we have that more expanded and that broader perspective, everything is put in its proper context. And we're reminded that this is just, that there's thousands, billions of little people incarnate on this planet that will come and go, throughout the course of how long. And you just realize how the brevity of the experience. And so you're not so attached to what it is that you think that you need for this to be a fulfilling experience, because your final message here is that if it's something that your higher self intended, you can be sure that when you're seeing things through their proper context and when you're in alignment with that soul blueprint, with what your higher self had intended for this individuation, then it's going to feel good, right? Maybe from the outside looking in, it doesn't always look good or it doesn't always look glamorous, but there's a certain peace that you emanate when you know that you're in alignment with something much greater. And that's because you're putting your treasures up where moth and rust do not corrupt, right? You found the kingdom. You found your true connection to bliss, to happiness, to peace. And it's not in anything that's going on out here, because as long as it's attached to anything going on out here, you are a slave. You are bound to that roller coaster ride. You're caught in the wave of samsara. So this seems like more than anything just a friendly reminder of your mission, and that, however that manifests in your life, to not be swayed by the purges, by the dark purges, the shadow purges that are happening collectively. Because that's essentially all that it is that we're seeing on the media. And, when we hear these certain narratives said time and time and time over and over again that are just here to kind of, it seems like in a way that it's intentionally trying to bring down the human spirit, right? But those are just external purges of where the collective consciousness is at, right? What we see on a collective level, what we see without, is just a reminder of where the vast majority of people are operating within their own paradigms, right? So just things to keep in mind, but you are here on a mission. You have always felt that. You are, this just seems like a friendly reminder. Your fine tuning is much more of an internal thing, much more of a mental thing. But, just keep in mind that a lot of what you are dealing with is not even your own stuff. That these are not necessarily lessons you came here to learn, but you came to be a catalyst in other people's journeys and to help transmute energetically and however else you're called to be an active participant in that transmutation process. So I hope this brought confirmation and peace to your heart. If it did, please give this video a thumbs up. Comment down below. I love connecting with you guys, and I hope I see you soon. What's up, group number 2? Here is your soul blueprint reading for what your higher self had intended for you within this incarnation. And we'll also be addressing how to help fine-tune this intention or to bring you back into greater alignment with this intention. So this group number 2, you guys are here in a powerful way. You are here to help shatter people's perceptions of the nature of reality. You guys are here to essentially help catalyze people into expanding their viewpoint, right? So going from narrow focus to more expanded focus. It seems like your higher self had intended you to be the type of individual to question everything, to question authority, to question the systems that are in place around you, right? This is kind of like a soul that is not okay with just saying yes to the way things have been, right? And so it's like one of your gifts is being able to sniff out, even in the most subtle ways, where people are being manipulative or where businesses are being manipulative. I just feel like you guys just have a nose, and you guys just have an ability to really feel into where someone is coming from, or where organizations are coming from, or, where groups of people are coming from in terms of how they're conducting themselves and how they're associating themselves with you or with a group of people, right? So, your higher self had intended within this incarnation that you get really picky about who it is that you let in your field. You get really picky about who it is that you allow to talk into your ear. So who it is that you allow to influence your paradigms. And I'm hearing, one of the areas that you can fine tune is not only just who you take advice from. So just being aware that it's people that are within your same realms of perception, if not ideally more expanded. But I am hearing for you, pile 2, one of the ways that, one of the areas that needs fine tuning is in the area of romantic relationships. So for the most part, I feel like you guys are pretty solid in your convictions, right? You have a really solid foundation in terms of your beliefs, right? And if it isn't something that you can necessarily voice, it's the way that you carry yourself. It's the businesses you put your horsepower behind. I feel like you're really picky in most areas. And what I'm hearing is that it can be challenging for you to maintain the same sense of self-sovereignty when it comes to romantic dynamics. And so maybe you tend to kind of lose yourself a little bit within those romantic relationships, or it's a place where you find yourself compromising more than feels like it's actually in integrity for what you're here for. So what I mean by that is sometimes we find ourselves compromising when it's like, okay, this person wants to see this movie, I want to see that movie, right? Those types of compromises are pretty, are not a big deal. But in terms of like, okay, what am I going to put in my body, the type of food that I eat, right? If you are strongly guided to, for example, not eat meat, and then you have a partner that eats a lot of it and, has their paradigm really supports and is quite necessary for them to have that, your higher self is just warning in those situations where you have really developed strong convictions that, yes, of course, it's necessary to always remain malleable and not to become rigid, but at the same time, would you eat a big old steak because you're so enamored by this individual that you're willing to throw away what you know to be deeply true to you more so than their own paradigm. So that might have been a terrible example, but that's just an example of what's coming through, is one area where it seems like there might be a little bit of complications in terms of like letting go of things that aren't fully aligned, or, you know, questioning everything, might be when you feel passion or your heart is sparked by someone. And I am hearing like, you know, I feel like this is a deep healing of your heart that's occurring as well, that's happening within this incarnation, or just, you know, just because we have the Kiss card and the Ace of Cups, I am receiving multi-layered messages from these cards about there's a tenderizing of your heart that is attempting to occur, right? And so being open to accepting offers from both like platonic friends, right? And then people that do want to offer you a cup of love, but as long as they are, again, in alignment with your overall mission. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to speak the same language or have the same lexicon as you, but at least, you know, someone that is very receptive to what you stand for. Because I feel like with this card coming up as like one of the major themes within this incarnation, I feel like it might be challenging for you to meet other people that you can have these types of conversations where you are showing up completely unfiltered and you're really able to speak completely unfiltered, like where you're not having to catch someone up to speed with where you're at. And so, you know, it might be challenging in romantic relationships too. This is where the fine tuning needs to happen, because you probably tend to be the teacher in the dynamic, or the guide or the mentor. Not to say that there's not things that you're also enjoying within the dynamic. I mean, I hope you're enjoying things in your romantic dynamics. Otherwise, that's not the relationship to be in. And maybe that's your reminder. But essentially, I feel like you guys are kind of used to taking the loner's path and being on your own. And so maybe sometimes when you get that passionate spark that does come through, you're like, oh my God. And it can be great in some areas, but there's huge red flags in other areas. But you're willing to settle, right? You're willing to settle for the night versus waiting for the Ace of Cups, right? So I feel like you're quite used to, I don't want to say being misunderstood, that might be an aspect, but you're quite used to just being in your own lane, you know? And I'm just getting this very contemplative type of vibe from this group. And so, you know, we have two cards here that talk about reflection, the Seven of Pentacles, which talks about reflecting over things that are of the earth plane, and then the Hermit card, which to me just signifies the fact that you tend to see things through a much more spiritual lens, and it's quite easy for you to put things in their context in terms of like, okay, what was the soul lesson here, or what was my part in this, or what was my part in being a catalyst for someone. Because I hear that when you are in romantic dynamics, or even when you are just like starting off with someone, your attention on that person that you're interested in romantically, your attention on them is so powerful, and that within itself is so it's so transformative. And so I feel like sometimes there might even be a little bit of bitterness of wanting and desiring a kind of like a long-term partnership. Or for those of you guys who are, you know, in a partnership, there might be a desire or like a bitterness around not feeling like they're meeting your emotional and intellectual and spiritual depths, right? And so, you know, ultimately the final message to wrap this up is, yes, you guys are here in a big way to help transmute illusion and free people from suffering through understanding, you know, the veils of illusion, and understanding however you guys are guided to teach that and to embody that, right? And I am saying that the more challenging place for you to uphold that same level of I'm not here to bullshit around is in your romantic dynamics, not compromising who you are, not playing down who you are to make someone more comfortable around you, right? But just trusting that you were guided within that dynamic for a reason. There's generally, we are guided to people by law of magnetism. So there's something there that wants to be exchanged. There are codes that one or both people want to exchange in order to enhance and expand their journey of evolution, and essentially involution too. So just a little friendly reminder from spirit here, but ultimately very powerful mission that you guys are on. And the last message is not accepting something, not accepting just any offer because you are feeling lonely, right? So if it's not aligned, don't do it. Don't take the bait. Like, wait for those things that really holistically light your heart up and that intuitively feel right? Not just maybe mentally of like, oh, this person is this, and this, but just intuitively you feel safe around. Because I am hearing an aspect of your soul blueprint is feeling safe in your body and feeling safe to love other people. So if this brought you guys confirmation or peace or anything, please give this video a like. It helps my channel expand. And leave any synchronicities down in the comment section. I really love reading all of the crazy ass synchronicities that happen and just in this infinite synchronistic portal that is the tarot community. So I hope I see you guys soon. What's up, pile number 3? Here is your soul blueprint reading for what your higher self had intended for you this incarnation. Now I've got a shit-eating grin across my face because I flipped over your cards to really tune into the message, because I'm trying to get better at just delivering these in a straight shot kind of way, not rambling too much like I'm doing now. And man, you guys, this group is all the feels, all the beautiful feels. And the first thing that higher self wants you guys to remember here is that if it feels like your lifetime has been one of consistently being shattered open and consistently going through these phoenix rising moments and thinking like, is it because there's something that I'm doing something wrong that like I start to feel like I'm getting wiser, and then somehow these fucking tower moments happen and everything's falling apart and there's bridges that are up in fucking flames, right? Am I doing something wrong? Higher self wants to remind you that no, that is actually a big part of your soul mission here with this cracked open card, right? It literally says, surrender to the alchemy of life. Oh, I thought it said something about shatter. Surrender to the alchemy of life, rock bottom. So an essential part of your soul's blueprint, and I'd actually be quite curious if you guys had like your Pluto was in Scorpio or something. I mean, because mine is, and so I definitely resonate with this. But you know, there's so many different reasons and things within our soul blueprint that can be aiding to this, right? So I'm hearing that, yeah, you guys just go through those phoenix rising moments where actually I feel like you develop a hell of a lot of respect for yourself when you go through these moments, because when you go through enough of these, man, in all different types of ways. So when you like lose loved ones, when, you know, they make their transition before anyone was ready, or when you have to break up with the love of your life because you just know it's the right thing to do, or whatever it is, whatever huge decisions you've had to make that, you know, despite what your smaller self wanted, that the higher self, or it seemed like those situations that it really seemed like the divine was taking over, right? You know, I feel like you really gain a lot of respect for yourself and kind of like this energy of you can't fuck with me and I'd like to see you try, right? But at the same time, it comes with this, like there is just so much energy behind you. Like this is an extremely powerful group. This is like, I can't even, this is like a very palpably powerful group. And I can already just feel the immense transformations that have occurred because of these consistent rock bottom moments, then pulling yourself up by the bootstrap and like not giving up, right? Not fucking surrendering, like surrendering to life, but not surrendering the battle, right? Maybe surrendering the notion that you're the one battling, and that ultimately understanding that it's God's, right? It's God's battle. It belongs to the universe, right? But ultimately with this, in terms of how to help fine tune or where this needs fine tuning in your life, my pile 3. So we have the eternal child, and we also have the sun card, which I felt like they really embodied similar things, like with the circle and then the rays coming up here, right? And then we have the sun and the rays, and then it says the eternal child, and there's like a child here. So one of the ways that you can help fine tune this is by like having fun, having more fun. Give yourself permission to have more fun, right? To not let these moments where it feels like we hit rock bottom and we're cracked open. These are very purifying events in our life. So purification, and we talk about purification too. That's a really common word or understanding, even in the realms of like Ayurveda, not just from a philosophical standpoint, but on the level of the body and the mind. Purification are those things those situations in our life that can either leave us bitter or they can leave us better, right? And so Spirit is really asking you here how you can help fine tune your mission here, is to allow these situations to leave you less bitter and more better than not, right? And that's not to say you might not have moments where you feel a little pissed off and you're like, why the fuck? Like those moments where it feels like you were put in a tube, and despite all of your best of intentions and your wisdom, you went off and fucking did something that maybe you knew that you shouldn't, or it felt very valid in that moment, and then the blinders came off. Spirit removed those blinders because you needed to have an activation or something needed to happen to catalyze something in a specific way. We don't always know from this perspective, right? And so that's also what it means. Surrender is like, you don't need to know why these things are happening. But with this Eight of Pentacles, it's like one foot in front of the other, man. Like, do not put the carriage in front of the horse, right? One foot in front of the other. This is like, take your time. Let that foundation kind of build itself. And the fact that we have this surrender card, and then we have the Hanged Man coming up, and anything else higher self wants you to know. It's like really, you're approaching life where you're engaging with it, but ultimately it's like you don't forget your place in the universe and to laugh more. I'm really hearing the necessity to laugh more. Some sunflowers might be relevant for some of you guys. I don't know why I felt guided to say that, but I am just noticing a lot of these sunflowers here. But the last message that's coming through pile number 3 with this eternal child is the disposition of a child is one that just trusts, right? One that ultimately like is showing up fresh in each moment. So if you have kids, you know as well as I do that when something needs to happen, when something needs to come out, they're experiencing a certain emotion, they let it out. And because they're not inhibited by being nervous about what other people think, fear of judgment, whatever, and they're not judging themselves, they haven't really developed that capacity, depending on their age, to judge themselves. You see how those emotions are gone just as quickly as they came. And generally, at least, the kids I'm around a lot, and my own child, I mean, she's generally extremely happy. And she is just such an extension of source and trust and love, no matter, no matter the quirks and the flaws of the people around them. Kids are just so accepting of the moment, and just ultimately, you see that they don't, and this is what higher self is wanting you to fine tune, is ultimately for you to not assume that you're doing something bad because you're having a tower moment, or to assume that you know the reason why. Because I'm hearing your guys's immediate reaction is that I did something wrong, or like, how did I manifest this, right? When you are a more advanced soul, that shit works a lot differently, right? You realize that your highest timeline is my will is thy will, right? And it's not necessarily what I think is best for me, but just being along for the journey and knowing and deeply trusting that I don't always know the why, but I just am trusting that it's always catalyzing me into a direction where I'm bringing back more of my power. Because sometimes certain things can happen in our life that will catalyze us to explore something, or to, try something new, or to learn something new. And we're actually so much better off because we learned that, and it holistically aids our entire perception of the nature of reality. And we might have thought that we did it because we're trying to fix this one thing, or we want to get better at this one area of our lives, but it ended up holistically shifting our paradigm and catalyzing us into even more of our power, right? But the small mind, can sometimes think that it's just, okay, I got this is where I am and I got to get here to help where this is, not understanding that, you know, this unfortunate situation could actually be leading you in a certain direction to certain resources, people, etc., that are going to holistically shift your life, man, profoundly. These are profound shifts that can happen, but you're not going to enjoy it. You're really not going to enjoy it as much if every time something bad happens, there's like a lot of bitching behind it. But I really don't get that too much for you guys. I think most of, you know, sometimes we do. I be bitching sometimes. But ultimately, this is like, don't forget to have fun, right? And seeing the world through a fresh lens every time, showing up brand new, forgetting the fucking past, letting go of the past. Don't bring those old stories as much as you can, unless you're going back to your old stories to help communicate a lesson that you learned to someone, or, you know, unless you're going back to those old stories to help uplift the planet in some way. It's not necessary, right? Leaving it where it is and just starting fresh in each moment is essentially what higher self is communicating to you today, pile number 3. So if this resonated, please give this video a thumbs up. Any synchronicities come up for you, leave those comments down in the comment section, please. I really appreciate it. It helps my channel expand, and I hope I see you guys soon. What's up, group number 4? Here's your soul blueprint reading for what your higher self had intended for you within this incarnation. Important to remember that this is just a teeny aspect of the entirety and complexity that is your soul's blueprint. So this is just what your higher self thought was most important for you to remember this time around, or just in this moment. The messages are already coming through. So I'm hearing for you guys, pile number 4, that things can seem to happen in your life that leave you in a space of feeling very, very beside yourself, in the sense that you guys are not individuals that can be thrown off your center too easily. And I feel like you're not always sure why certain things can strum your chords in a certain way to leave you feeling like you're in this space of not really knowing what's going to happen, or not knowing how you're going to move forward, or why something is happening, 1:11 on the clock, or like to feel that you can ultimately trust life and where it's leading you. Because, you know, that's really coming through as the main message for higher self. For you guys, from higher self for you guys, is that these situations are not by accident, and there's things that are happening in your external world that are meant to trigger you into a state of fear, that are meant to trigger you, right? These are here for a reason, because in you being triggered, and in you ultimately, I feel like when you guys are triggered to this state of fear, that you more and more tend to go less to outside and external means to try to help soothe your soul, and you start to come internally more, and you start to look to God, right? By meditating, by contemplating, by taking time by yourself. Because the major theme that's coming through with your higher self is this feeling that you are protected. Loyalty, safety, trust, star brothers, right? This is Horus energy. This is about, you know, Horus is all about the third eye energy, being able to see with your spiritual eye, being able to see beyond what your external circumstances are trying to suggest to you is actually happening. And so I'm hearing that when you have these moments of something in your external life triggering you into a state of fear, every time it's meant to do that, to catalyze you to take time for yourself. Right? This is coming up as how to help fine tune this, is to actually follow where you're being guided. So when you're in a state of fear, or you might not be being guided to take time by yourself, maybe you're guided to act, and maybe you're guided to want to work out a lot, or maybe you're guided to pick up the phone and call someone, right? And because the mountain is coming up in the area of how we can help fine tune this, or how higher self wants you to fine tune this, I'm essentially taking this to mean, you know, where did the yogis and the mystics go in order to have direct communion with God, or with the universe, with source? You know, oftentimes yogis are associated with mountains and caves, right? That internal cave. And so for some of you, there's also a message here too, that when you are in meditation, that you are actively connecting with your native planet. That's just for a few of you with the Star Brothers aspect, actively connecting with your native planet, you know, remembering allowing yourself to tune more into the energies of those planets that you may or may not remember having lifetimes on, but ultimately remembering the energy of that planet and knowing that, you unlock that when you're in stillness. You unlock that even more. You allow that dormant DNA to be activated when you're taking time by yourself and you're not being influenced by the paradigms and the reality bubbles and just the codes and thoughts and bullshit of the rest of the world, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. So, one aspect to your soul's plan, this incarnation, is to bring you into states, right? And we're all going to experience this, but this is a very intricate part of your blueprint that Spirit does not want you to forget moving forward. That anytime fear is triggered in you, because you guys, I'm hearing that you guys are just like very advanced and you tend to have a very good connection to source. Your crown is open. You have probably been communing with your spirit guides since you can remember, since you were young, whether you knew it at the time or not. So it doesn't, there aren't very many things that can shake your rocker. But when they do, the air family talks about things that may or may not be actually happening on the earth plane, that it's mainly has to do with what's happening in the realms of mind, right? So more so for you than not, it's what's happening on the realms of mind. Why was that fear triggered? It's not necessarily important to figure out the why, because it's leading you here, right? It's leading you here to the mountain to lead you here to victory, right? Because you're calling upon the only true source that really can make any type of change. When you're in meditation, you guys, you're connecting with the fabric of what creates this entire reality and experience in the first place. So you are going directly to the source of what creates all of this, what creates our circumstances, our relationships, our material abundance or lack thereof, right? Again, remembering that all of this is relative in terms of your karma or just in terms of your soul's blueprint. So what felt relevant from higher self for you to experience, right? Within this incarnation. But in meditation, you are literally in communion with the very fabric that makes everything up in the first place. So, when you go straight to the source, victory is generally, if not always, assured, right? So you start off with this, and then it leads you here, right? It leads you into yourself even more. This ends up happening, and then because of that, this happens, right? New ideas are born. Even more inspiration is born. Out of all of the ace cards, the Ace of Wands to me represents anything is possible. Not I can go anywhere, I can do anything. My wildest dreams are not out of reach, right? And so I feel again, how our higher self works can tend to be pretty cryptic, right? And sometimes we think that we know the reason why certain things are happening, but generally, just between you and me and higher self, higher self could care less about what's happening on the realm of form. Right? Higher self doesn't care. I was about to say doesn't give a fuck, but that's more me. That's more my personality being infused into this. But really, Spirit doesn't care what's happening on the outside, right? In this world of form. Spirit cares more about energetics, right? How is this affecting you? How is this bringing you out of your mind, right? Bringing you in states that are less dictated by your mind and much so dictated by your intuition, and your mind is just there as a servant, as a tool to help actualize and bring you in greater alignment with brighter paradigms, realities that actually support the amount of unearthing you've done in terms of removing the veils of illusion and living more from where your life is more dominated by truth and less dominated by fear, by illusion, by all that is transient. So ultimately, this life, within this incarnation, one of the ways that your higher self brings you into greater trust, greater flow, just greater understanding and just greater conviction in yourself and peace, no matter what's happening, is in those small ways that you're kind of brought into the realms of obsessing over something that you can't fix or you know, a sense of obsessing, whether out of fear, out of envy, out of jealousy, right? There's not many things that I'm hearing can really trigger you into that state. And when they can, don't make it mean about the thing, right? Because it's meant to just lead you here, right? It's meant to just lead you into yourself, where you're not trying to, you know, we actually prove our insecurities and we prove illusion right when we're trying to disprove it, right? When we're trying to be like, oh well, but you know, this and this, it's like, no, don't even engage, right? Spirit is trying to invite you more into this space where you're really a really fluid and uninhibited vessel for your soul stream by triggering however it can and bringing you here, right? Bringing you into the core of who you are. And I feel like you guys have probably already had enough times where you see how, like, it's like some of you might have even thought that you were being led here in order to have greater insight around whatever the trigger was in the first place. But holistically, it's like things in your life and your incarnation make sense, and you're actually getting new ideas, new inspirations about other things. And ultimately to a point to where, you know, you hardly even remember what that trigger was or who was involved with the trigger or why it needed to happen, right? But I feel like one of the things that might be challenging for you guys is taking that as an invitation to go into yourself and to be still, right? Because I'm seeing someone who's sitting down, and, you know, when I think of the cave or when I think of the mountain, I just see yogis and someone who is just immersed in stillness and maybe even darkness, right? Being in like a dark room or a dark cave, but essentially not scattering the energies even more by trying to fix it on the level of the earth or on the level of physicality, which is only a surface level manifestation of the depths of where spirit is actually trying to guide you, right? So not only, you know, if you have a trigger in one area and you try to fix that one area only, you might be missing out on the holistic up-leveling of your entire reality if you just simply went into meditation, or if you simply went into contemplation for a few days or whatever. Turn off your phone, didn't engage with social media, and just really sat in stillness. And I'm hearing that the more that you do that, the more that things do make sense, and you get these ideas that are incredible, and you have flashes of insight, and you have new direction, and you have guidance in terms of how what you're already doing, how that can be elevated, or you're guided to the right source, the right teacher, the right resources in order to holistically elevate your life. But, you know, if we're trying to constantly fix things, triggers from the same level that they occur, it's like, you know, that's just creating a feedback loop, perpetuating the realms of mind and perpetuating this idea that we can somehow fix these triggers from the level of manifestation versus the root level of all dis-ease and discomfort and triggers. You know, when you peel back enough layers, the root to that is all the same, and it's believing in illusion, right? And so how do we cleanse our lens of perception is by activating more of that spiritual eye, right? That Horus energy. And we do that in darkness, right? Melatonin and etc. that's released. The pituitary gland is activated in darkness and in meditation, right? So I'm hearing that a lot of what can help you enhance and fine-tune greater alignment to what you're here for, these triggers are going to happen a lot less when you find yourself naturally heading to your puja table or engaging in your sadhana, going into meditation consistently, right? However that looks for you, however you can be consistent with that, right? And so those are going to need to happen a lot less, those triggers and those events, because they're only there to catalyze you to go on, to sit down on your cushion and to quiet your mind and release your thoughts, right? And so you'll be experiencing more moments of this, right? More moments of victory, more moments of feeling activated and like anything is possible. The Ace of Wands to me is really that energy of anything is possible. I can go anywhere, I can do anything, because you know you have source itself at your sails, right? That's the wind that's at your sails, right? That's the wind I want behind my sails. So I'm going to leave this reading here for now. I hope this brought some sort of confirmation, clarity, peace to your heart today. Please give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment down below if that resonates, and I hope I see you soon. What's up, pile number 5? Here is your reading for what your higher self had intended for you within this incarnation. Just remembering too that this is just an aspect of the very complex nature that is our soul's blueprint. This is just one aspect that your higher self guided you here for, that thought would be felt, I don't know, they think or feel, but knew it would be necessary for you to hear at this time. So what your higher self had it intended for you within this incarnation was for you to affect the planet more so than you were to be affected by it, right? You are having empathic starseed come up here. So for many of you, I wouldn't be surprised if Earth has not felt like your native planet, or if you felt like this is not where you're supposed to be at some point in time. Rest assured, you're here. It's where you're meant to be. These things, believe it or not, don't happen by accident. So I am hearing that maybe there has been some resistance to that in the past, or feeling like you don't want to be here anymore or whatever, right? You're here, you're on a mission, and I'm already going to jump into the fine-tuning aspect, because it feels like the fine-tuning is something that's not just occurring at this point, specific point in time, but it feels like it's more of a lifelong challenge for you to navigate. And that's not being affected, right? Not being affected by everything that's happening in the world. So the Anima Mundi, this is the last card in the archetype deck. And I don't know how many cards are in here. Don't quote me, but there's a lot of cards. It's like this thick, right? When all of these cards are put together. And this is the very last card. So you can even interpret that as being like the world card in tarot. But this does represent to me, I see this card and I hear the world of the 10,000 things, right? That's a line in that's what the Tao Te Ching talks about. You know, the world of form is the world of 10,000 things. The world of 10,000 things, the world of form, is born from the formless. Right. And so, you know, this message is pretty clear cut, you guys. It's really saying that, you know, when you start to be more assertive with your boundaries across the board, so energetically, and, you know, not showing up to parties and not accepting invitations just because you feel like, you know, you feel like obligated to do so, obligated to do so. Or, you know, you're much more assertive and like, you know, I actually was not enjoying my time around this person the past few times. And you guys might be that type of individual too, because the empaths I know, and, you know, speaking from personal experience, tend to be very forgiving. And I'm not saying go out, start holding grudges, because that's like, you know, karma that you don't want to be bound to. But I am saying what higher self is saying, you guys, is that, you know, this is being like, the past few times I've hung out with this person, you know, they were kind of rude and, you know, not really seeing me and wanting to hear me. And I kind of felt like a soundboard for them to reaffirm their self-righteousness or something, right? And so, no, just because they're reaching out and some time has passed, it's a no. It doesn't feel like something I want to do. Right. And so being more assertive in your boundaries with this Queen of Swords, because I am hearing that you guys are a little bit afraid of, not afraid, but you're just mindful of how you make other people feel. And you don't want to come across as this cold-hearted bitch, right? Or dude, whatever, douche. But I'm hearing even if you tried, that wouldn't be the case. And it's essential here to know that I feel like you guys, something that higher self is communicating, you don't understand how just by a little bit of this, how you can create a lot of this, and it can bring you a ton of new starts that you're not even anticipating, right? So being clear energetically, and also being aware of, like, when you're around people that, you know, for whatever reason, there's a specific soul contract in place and you have to see them a lot, or it seems that way, or, you know, despite your best of intentions, it's like their energy just affects you and you just have to see them or something. Like maybe for some of you, I am hearing that it could be just like the parent of your child, or this could be someone that you see at work, like a coworker or something, you know, those people that you can't necessarily get away from, no matter, and their energy seems to affect you no matter how much you feel to like be putting up strong boundaries, right? Don't get lost in the illusion. Do not get lost in it, right? Do not attach them. Do not attach the core and the truth of who they are to their own karmas and their own subconscious playing out, right? So one of the ways you were here to set people free this time around, or, you know, for some of you guys, this might even be your first time, or maybe very first few incarnations within the realms of the earth, or this earth. You know, how we really set people free and how we essentially set ourselves free is the same. We understand and we realize that we are not the sum total of our thoughts and the sum total of our actions and behaviors, that we are actually far greater than that. And for many people, until they have attained a certain level of awareness and have gained enough Shakti or willpower in order to help shift those narratives or to shift those subconscious playing outs, those subconscious karmas, then for the most part, you're not even interacting with people how they wish they would be interacting, or you're not even meeting people in a place to where you are actually seeing their highest self if you are just solely focused on what's happening in terms of their personality or their actions and their behaviors, right? You become much more of a powerful activator when you are not also binding people to who they think they are, right? So those people that just like, for whatever reason, their energy just like gets to you and it's just like heavy, and you try to stay high, you try to stay bright, and it's just like they just pull you down. You know, it's higher self is really reminding you here to not get caught up in that, and to, when you see it for what it is, it's a lot easier to help that energy move through you, and to not start harboring resentment towards them or attaching their identity to, you know, their karmas, or to what they're having, you know, their own hellhole essentially, right? What they can't get out of, the cage that they have trapped themselves in. So I am hearing, when you're seeing things for what they are, right, putting things back into their context with this Queen of Swords, not attaching people to illusion, their own illusions, but remembering the truth of it all, that we're all the same, it's all one. At the end of the day, we're all connected through that formlessness, and, you know, the world of form is everything that is born from the formless, right? When you're not binding people to their illusions, and when you're also setting necessary boundaries, and you are not you're not bullshitting yourself anymore. You're not selling yourself short, and you're being okay with being firm. You're being okay with saying it how it is and how you really feel. So I'm hearing that, you know, you tend to, pile number 5, you tend to find yourself in dynamics where people, I feel like, are so easily like to tell you how it is, right? Like to tell you what's up with this world. And you're like, well, you can see where they're coming from, but you also understand that they're caught up in it. They're just so swept away by illusion and by fantasies and desires and just by misperceptions, right? And you don't really say anything, right? But set boundaries, or don't be afraid to tell them how you see it, right? Because I am getting this sense of a reclamation of power, because people will see you less as someone to just absorb and confirm their paradigms through your silence, versus someone that is like, you can see how the world however you want to see it, but this is how I see it. This is what sets me free. And by you doing that, you're no longer someone that they think that they can project all their volatility onto, or, you know, that isn't going to rock their boat in terms of their perception of the world, right? It's like being really honest about, too, how you see things, because that is going to create the necessary friction and the necessary tension for them to have a mirror held up to them, right? So they can see where they have faulty perceptions. And so we're essentially, you know, starseeds are here not for their own mission, right? Not for their own, like, ooh, fun Earth, right? Not at this point in time, at least. Starseeds are called here at this time to help with the ascension process of the planet, right? Because the native planets that you are from have already gone through this point in time. This is like toddler phase, right? This is like kindergarten on the planet Earth right now. And so, like, you guys have already been through this, right? This is not about your own lessons. This is about what you're here to help the Earth with, right? So setting those boundaries and being more firm. Don't be afraid to come across cold, because you guys can use a little bit of that kind of cold edge to you, because it's just going to add another dimension to the power that's already there, right? And so the more that you do that, the more quickly things move for you, right? You get more offers, you are traveling more, just the energy within you in general just feels more alive and more like, fuck with me, I dare you, like I can see right through you, kind of thing, but like, try me, And then once that energy is re-sparked and you're like, oh God, I do feel good. It feels good. Like putting a little, having a backbone, man, feels fucking amazing, right? And then you'll be surprised. I feel like you'll be really quite surprised at how you are compensated, holistically compensated. And if you guys actually have businesses where it requires you to work with clients, or be around other people, or like where you're working one-on-one with helping them kind of fine-tune their own perceptions in order to set themselves free, then it's important that you're not beating around the bush and you're saying it how it is, right? Because this is an act of love when we don't refrain from what we're being called to express from the depths of us, right? We're not reacting and like, I need to tell this person off, but it's like, I really feel like I should say this because for whatever reason, and I'm just going to trust that. And then seeing how that catalyzes someone else, and seeing what that does for you, etc. It's just going to uplift this planet holistically, right? When you're not getting lost in it, and when you're being really assertive and really assertive with the way that you view the world, and not just a being that people can talk at, right? It's like, no, this is a dialogue. I'm gonna say what the fuck I need to say too, and even energetically, right? So I hope this brought you guys what you needed: confirmation, clarity, peace, etc. Please give this video a thumbs up. It helps my channel expand, and leave a comment down below with any synchronicities, and I hope I see you soon.